Hello, English language learners. Thanks for joining me today. I'm Steven from LearnEnglishGoPlaces.com. Today, we're going to look at some phrasal verbs, and we're going to look at phrasal verbs with the verb break. We're going to look at phrasal verbs with the verb break. For those of you who don't know, phrasal verbs are verbs that are used to uh, express varied meanings um, by combining a verb with an adverb. So in this video, we're going to take the verb break and look at how we might combine that verb with different adverbs like break in, break out, break up, break down, and talk about how changing the adverb that we attach to the verb break changes the meaning of the expression. So these phrasal verbs are really helpful when you're learning English. Because they're used very often in English conversation. And if you don't know how these adjectives, or rather adverbs, that we add to the verbs affect the meaning, then you might get lost in the conversation. So today we're going to look at a verb break and talk about how adding different adverbs to the verb can change its meaning. The verb break by itself means to stop functioning. Like if your computer breaks, it means that it's not working anymore. It stops working, right? So to break means to stop working. Um, it also means to physically become damaged. Like if your car, if a part in your car breaks, or if your cell phone breaks, there's something that becomes physically damaged. And the other way that you can think about the word break is that it means something like to shatter. Like if you drop a a glass and it hits the floor and shatters into 100 different pieces, that also means break. But of course, all those different definitions are related. It means to, because when the glass hits the floor and shatters, it of course then loses its functionality. It ceases to be functional as a glass, right? So this is the basic definition of the verb break. Um, but we're going to look at how we can add different adverbs to this verb break, um, and to make different phrasal verbs that change its meaning to something else, right? So that's what we're going to look at today in this class. Okay. So we're just going to go through some examples. So the first example that we're going to look at is break away, which means to escape or become free from restraint. So this could be talking about prisoners, um, or it could be talking about um, uh, just a person who is trying to break away from a certain situation that they don't want to be in. They're trying to get out of a situation or get away from a situation that they don't want to be in. Um, so somebody could say, I want to break away from uh, this dysfunctional um, work environment. And so in that sense, it means to get away, basically. To leave behind is another way of saying the same thing. The example sentence that we have is, the prisoner managed to break away from the guards and flee. Okay, so that's break away. Break down. To break down is to cease functioning or to analyze in detail. So there's actually two definitions here. Um, One of the definitions is um, to cease functioning, which is basically the same thing as the verb break, but it's especially used with machinery. If machinery breaks down, like your car might break down or a truck might break down, um, What would be some other examples of things that might break down? Your computer could break down, um, although that would not be used quite as commonly as to say, like a car, your car broke down. Usually, you say your computer crashed, or my computer stopped working. But then breakdown also has another meaning, which is to analyze in detail, or to explain something. Because when we think about breakdown, the expression, it means something like, um, to it actually this phrasal verb also actually has many different meanings. So one meaning is to stop functioning, like a car breaks down. Another meaning is to like, um, break or separate into smaller parts. Like, um, for example, think about compost. Um, Compost, um, is like when you have food scraps, like when you're cooking, a meal or something like that, and you have leftover skins from apples or vegetables, and you throw them in a compost bucket. They then break down into compost. So to break down means to like disintegrate, to go from larger parts into smaller parts. So to break down, or when you digest food, you break it down. You break down food into smaller pieces. So that involves, so that has to do with digestion, right? So that's one meaning of breakdown, which is not listed here. And then the last meaning, which says, it says here to analyze in detail. Um, Really, that's not quite the correct definition. I would say that the better definition is, to break something down is to, it can mean to analyze it in detail, but typically it means to, um, either map something out, which means to, um, something like analyze it in detail to see how it to see how something's component parts work, to map it out, or to even explain something to someone. If you explain, if like, somebody might say, "Let me break this down for you. Let me explain it to you," by, breaking it down into its component parts. And something, maybe you have some system that's very complex and hard to understand. What you can do is break it down into easier to understand pieces, um, and that means to explain something. So like, this is a difficult concept. Let me break it down for you. Break down. So the example sentence we have here is, my car broke down on the highway and I had to call for roadside assistance. To break in is to enter a place illegally, or to wear in new clothes or gear. So two completely different definitions. The first one is to, burglarize, to enter a place illegally. Like if somebody breaks into your house, they come into your home, without your permission, um, illegally, right? So either they pick the lock or they smash the window and come in through the window. So breaking into a house, breaking into a, a, uh, a store, a any area, that's secured, um, that is, um, the layer of security is bypassed. That would be breaking in. And then, breaking in also means like to wear in new clothing or gear. So like if you have new shoes, and you wear them for the first time, uh, sometimes when people go running, um, I should say, sometimes runners, um, like to break in their shoes in a particular way. So when they buy new running shoes, they don't like to do a very long run on the first run. They like to run only a couple of miles, and then by running only a couple of miles, they break in the shoes. So it's like the first wear, right, of the shoes or the clothing is like breaking that thing in. So it's like um, kind of getting that piece of that clothing article or that pair of shoes um, broken in specifically for that individual that's using it or wearing it. Um, so it's breaking in. It allows that piece of clothing to kind of adjust to the person who's using it or wearing it. So you could talk about breaking in shoes. You could talk about breaking in new clothing. You could talk about breaking in a backpack, any kind of gear that you might use. Um, you could potentially break in. Um, so it means to use it for the first time and kind of get it accustomed for use. All right. Someone tried to break in last night, but the alarm scared them off. Scared them off is another phrasal verb. We don't have to get into that today. We might get into that next time or another time. Break out. To break out is to escape or to begin suddenly. I'm not sure actually that begin suddenly is exactly the right definition. To break out, um, these definitions are from ChatGPT, so they're not exactly perfect. To break out is to escape in the sense of like, um, you could say it's a similar meaning like when we talked about breaking away, like the prisoner broke away from the prison cell. You could also say the prisoner broke out of the prison cell. That's a similar meaning, basically. So to break out of something, to break out of some difficult situation, basically means the same thing as to break away from. So to break out and away, out and away, both have similar meanings. Um, but it also means it says to begin suddenly. That's not quite the right definition. To break out can also mean to to spread rapidly, right? Like we use it a lot in when we're talking about diseases like coronavirus outbreak, right? The virus broke out and spread to different countries. So breaking out is we often use that term in epidemiology, talking about the spread of diseases. Um, People sometimes talk about breakout groups, like in meetings, like in business meetings, like uh, breakout. We're going to form breakout groups, and these are like um, generally it means groups that are trying to come up with new ideas. I think you have to double check me on that one. I apologize. I think there's someone shoveling outside. So if you hear that, the banging of the shovel against the sidewalk, I apologize for that. Panic broke out when the fire alarm went off in the crowded theater. So panic broke out, like spread, um, when the fire alarm went off, and that's another good phrasal verb, went off. So to go off. Also a phrasal verb to go, and then we add this adverb off, and it means to sound like an alarm. The alarm sounded, but we don't usually say the alarm sounded. We usually say the alarm went off. So a fire alarm could go off, or your alarm clock in the morning could go off. Or if you're in a hospital, an IV, you could say, oh, this person's IV is going off. So to go off means to sound. Uh, and again, we usually don't say to sound. Uh, we usually say to go off. Okay, break through. To break through is to overcome a barrier or an obstacle. Like we broke through, uh, like that jet broke through. Again, I apologize for this shoveling if you can hear that. This jet broke through the sound barrier. It broke through. So it overcame that barrier. Um, or like I broke through, or she broke through um, some kind of psychological block, right? She got past some kind of psychological block. So to break through means to get past or to overcome or surpass some kind of obstacle, right? To break through. And this phrasal verb can also be used as a noun. We can also say that um, uh, somebody had a breakthrough and like they somehow bypassed some kind of blockage in their brain and then moved past it to some kind of place of clarity. So we can say that they had a breakthrough, a breakthrough. After months of hard work, he finally managed to break through the language barrier for whatever language he was learning. And then to break up is to end a relationship or disperse a group. So the example sentence here is they decided to break up after realizing they wanted different things in life. So this is referring to a couple that broke up. Um, the other meaning of break up is like breaking up. You could break up, for example, you could say the police came out on Thursday night and broke up the riots that were taking place. So to break up means uh, to stop them from to stop those riots from happening. Um, so to bring an end to some kind of process that's underway is to break up. So those are some potential. So those are some definitions of break up. So that's everything that I wanted to talk to you guys about today pertaining to phrasal verbs with break. So I hope you found this useful. I hope that this was valuable to you in some way. Um, Check out learnenglishgoplaces.com if you're interested in having like one-on-one English language sessions with me, and consider subscribing to the channel if you like these kinds of videos, if you find them helpful. Appreciate you guys. Thanks again for joining me, and see you in the next video.